Welcome everybody to Tropical Weather Update. This video is being recorded at 8 a.m. on September 28th, 2022, and this is an update for Hurricane Ian. We've got a lot of information to talk about this morning. What you're seeing on the screen is a Radar Omega live radar at 8:09 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time of what has now become Category 4, almost Category 5 Hurricane Ian. Right off the coast of Fort Myers, Florida, moving to the north-northeast. Let's just take a quick look at it, and I'll, kind of draw here where it's likely going. Somewhere in this area it is going to make landfall, and so I'm going to erase this and kind of zoom in on this area here. This appears to be somewhere north of Fort Myers, north of Cape Coral, in the Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda area of Florida. And you can see there is an inlet there. I'm not from that area, but I believe that area got flooded significantly during Hurricane Charlie. And so that's a pretty much worst case scenario for the southwest coast of Florida, to have a landfalling hurricane at a Category 4 or even close to 5 strength in that area. And we have some storm surge maps that I'm going to go over today. But this is what it looks like. The eye has reformed overnight. There was an eyewall replacement cycle. It looked like it had been deteriorating. The eye actually did collapse last night around 11 p.m. I had a live stream on, and it looked good. It looked like the storm was becoming disorganized, but that's not the case. That was an eyewall replacement cycle. The new eye formed and is more defined, as you can see on this radar. This is the Tampa Bay radar, and I will show you the satellite image. It looks really organized right now. It looks like it is still in a strengthening phase. Hopefully that does not continue all the way through landfall, but we can't rule that out, and it's looking like a Category 4 landfall, unfortunately, along the southwest coast of Florida. So let's go right now then to the National Hurricane Center graphic. I'm sure you can find this yourself. Maximum sustained winds now are 155 miles an hour. 156 miles an hour is a Category 5. So that's only 1 mile per hour less than Category 5 status. They usually do it only in increments of 5 miles an hour, though. So if they didn't find flight winds of 160, they're not going to call it a Category 5. But it's essentially a Category 5 storm, 1 mile an hour less. Moving to the north-northeast at 9 miles an hour. That track should take it slightly north of Fort Myers, but the counterclockwise circulation is just going to provide a massive amount of water and storm surge into and around to the south of where that center makes landfall. And it looks like it's going to push a lot of water up, and I will show you some really detailed Google Maps and National Hurricane Center storm surge maps in a second here. Let's read the actual discussion from the National Hurricane Center. This is a special advisory issued at 7 a.m. Related to the strength. The forecast intensity is raised to 135 knots, which I think is 155 miles an hour at landfall, and we are now forecasting a catastrophic storm surge of 12 to 16 feet from Englewood to Bonita Beach, Florida. And it explains it here. Ian completed an eyewall replacement cycle during the overnight hours, and very recent data from Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate the hurricane has reached Category 4 intensity. Pressure has fallen to 942 millibars. Well, if you look up here, it's even fallen further to 937 millibars. So it is continuing to strengthen. Hopefully it's reached its peak at this point and goes on a downward cycle, but it is getting very close to the southwest coast of Florida, so it may hit southwest Florida near its peak intensity, unfortunately. So let's now look at the satellite image, and you can see the well-defined eye. It's still a little jagged, but it is much, much better organized than it was last night. During my live stream, it looked like the eye collapsed entirely, which it did, but that was just an eyewall replacement cycle. If you look at the storm, there is just so much symmetry around the center, and that shows how organized it is. We were hoping that some dry, cooler air would funnel into the south part of the storm and break it up, but that hasn't happened. We have a perfect symmetry. We have the blacks, on all sides of the storm. You can see it there and there. So we have a very, very organized storm at this point, and no reason to believe in the next 3 or 4 hours that it's going to deteriorate. So we expect a landfall of this max category 4, 155 miles an hour, right around this part, which is south of Tampa, south of Sarasota, north of Fort Myers, somewhere in that vicinity. Obviously, if you're there now, you probably aren't even watching this video. Hopefully you've evacuated, because I'm going to show you some maps here that are very concerning to me. Let's look at the water vapor image. You can see there's still plenty of moisture all the way wrapped around the storm. There's a lot of dry air to the west of the storm, but it hasn't infiltrated the storm yet, hasn't affected it at all, and it's just being blocked. All this up here, this dry air, you were hoping would get sucked into the storm somehow, but it hasn't. I mean, this is all blocking it out. And as the storm moves this way, it doesn't look like that's going to affect the storm very much at all. It's just too well organized of a storm. It's created its own atmosphere around itself, and it is not being affected by the other exterior components to the west that could potentially weaken it, especially as it continues to move to the east. If it had a more northerly track, perhaps that dry, cooler air would have affected it more. But because this track shifted to the east and to the south, it's protected itself basically from that cooler, drier air. We already looked at that. Here's a Google Maps image of the Fort Myers area and north of there. And some of the cities around here, I'm not real familiar with this area, even though I'm from Florida, but we're talking about Pine Island, we're talking about Charlotte Harbor Preserve State Park, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Manasota Key, Englewood, Venice, South Venice, Northport, and obviously the Fort Myers area itself is still under the gun. As we move a little north of there, Siesta Key, Osprey, Venice, we already discussed that, Arcadia upstream a little bit. But what I did was I have this map up, and then I found the National Hurricane Center storm surge map and set it for Category 5 and tried to overlay it right on this same image. So this is the Google Maps image. This is the storm surge map at Category 4. And all those red areas say greater than 9 feet above ground, meaning water can get to up to 9 feet above ground. And I mean, the red and yellow areas, the yellow is 3, the orange is 6 feet. But all those red areas could be completely inundated with water. Up to 9 feet, that's 1 story high. So any structure that's 1 story high could be completely flooded in a Category 4 storm approaching. And we have close to a Category 5. I mean, if you click it on 5, it even makes the red further inland. So if you look at Google Maps, I mean, we're talking about, this entire area being underwater. I mean, that is catastrophic, as well as, pretty much all of these areas. I mean, let's zoom in a little bit. I mean, we're talking about much of Fort Myers being underwater. And these are all populated areas, obviously along the coast, Charlotte Harbor, Fisherman's Village, Port Charlotte, Northport. All of these areas around the Peace River, Gasparilla Sound, Charlotte Harbor. And the water is going to start increasing now if it hasn't already. All of these island areas, Manasota Key, Blind Pass Beach. I mean, this is a very, very bad situation for this part of the state of Florida. Again, going back to the map, I mean, all those red areas could potentially be inundated by ocean water. And so if you're in any of those areas, obviously, if you haven't evacuated yet, it's probably getting close to being too late. You need to get out now. I'm sure the local authorities are issuing evacuation orders for almost all of this area. But I don't think anyone expected it to become a Category 5 hurricane by this morning. Especially last night, it looked like it had lost some of its organization, but it was just reorganizing itself. In addition, though, to the storm surge along the coast, there is a great rainfall threat inland as this storm moves inland. And you can see on this map, possibly 15 to 20 inches of rain may fall in central Florida. Certainly 10 to 15 inches throughout from the Tampa Bay area all the way through Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Orlando, Kissimmee. That area is all shaded in red. And the reason is this storm is moving very slow. And once it makes landfall, it's expected to even slow down a little bit more. And I think they said on the latest forecast that the storm is forecast to slow down more. And so it's going to dump a lot of rain along the I-4 corridor in central Florida. Obviously, that's not as bad as the storm surge and 150-mile-an-hour winds that are going to be faced in the Fort Myers area and north of there. But it's still, we don't have rivers here in Florida that overflow very often, and we're a flat state, so we don't have runoff. But at the same time, our storm drains can get clogged up when it rains for too much for too long, and water starts to accumulate on the roads, making driving very dangerous. So if you're anywhere in the central Florida area, get everything done now and do not drive on the roads unnecessarily as the day progresses, and certainly through tomorrow. Thursday is, I think, when the rain is even going to increase further. But we may have 36 hours of decent sized rain as this storm makes its way through the state of Florida. And we also have tornado possibility. If you watched the live stream last night, you saw a whole bunch of tornado warnings in the Palm Beach County area and in the Dade County, Western Dade County, and Broward County area. That's because on the northwest quadrant of a storm, the right forward quadrant, there are always small tornadoes that form as a storm progresses through. So we already saw it last night in the Palm Beach County area. We expect that to move further to the north. And so a tornado watch is in effect until 5 p.m. this afternoon. Includes Orlando, Melbourne, Vero Beach, Sarasota, and anywhere to the north and to the right of where this storm makes landfall will be under a tornado threat. And that tornado threat will continue to move northward. So expect a tornado watch to remain in effect for most of the peninsula of Florida and eventually moving through Daytona Beach and Gainesville as the storm continues to move across the state. And of course, it depends. If it crosses the state and goes off into the ocean, then Florida will be on the left side of the storm. There won't be a tornado threat. But if it moves more to the north, north-northeast like it is now, and crosses where the center stays on shore, the tornado threat will remain to the right of the center of the storm. So expect some spin-up tornadoes. Tornado warnings probably will be issued throughout today as the outer bands move along through south and then eventually central Florida. South Florida was the threat last night. If you saw on the live stream, there were a lot of tornado warnings were popping up. All right, that's all I have for now. This is a long video. I'm sorry about that, 13 minutes, but I had a lot to cover. Again, let's go back to the radar. We got a pretty significant, almost Category 5 hurricane headed toward southwest Florida. So pray for everybody there because this is no joke. This is a dangerous situation. There's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of flooding, a lot of wind damage, anywhere from Naples all the way up to Venice and Sarasota as the storm moves very slowly, and it's extremely strong right now, 1 mile an hour less than Category 5 status. Just looking at this map, we do have some tornado warnings already. So this is in the tornado warned area. Tornado watch area, I mean. 2 tornado warnings already. So that will continue throughout the day to the north and to the west of the center. All right, thanks for watching the update, and I will do another update if necessary, but I think things are pretty well set right now as far as the track and the strength. Can't get much stronger than it is right now, unfortunately. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you can, share it, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for tuning in. Be safe, everybody. Thank you.